San Diego. Naval Amphibious Base, Coronado. October 1967. Tuesday morning, just after 0800. The base is already loud. Equipment moving, formations drilling on the gravel flats, instructors running men through scenarios that would end careers anywhere else. This is where Navy SEALs are made, where they come back to after the places they won't talk about, where the standard for what a man can do is so high that most men who try don't survive the attempt. Daniel Reeves is 26 years old, 6 feet 8 inches tall, 280 pounds. Not gym weight, operational weight, the kind of mass that comes from years of carrying things that should not be carried by human beings across terrain that should not be crossed by human beings under conditions that should not be survived by human beings. He has been through Bud S. He has been through Hell Week, 6 days of cold and exhaustion and pain that removes everything from a man except what's essential. He has 2 combat deployments. He's been in the water, in the dark, with a knife and a mission, and nothing else. He is, by any objective measurement, one of the most capable men on a base filled with capable men. He knows this. Everyone knows this. It is not a secret, and it is not arrogance. It is simply the record. When Daniel Reeves walks into a room, the room changes. Not because of theater. Because of physics. He has opinions about martial arts. Specifically about Kung Fu, specifically about the kind of demonstrations he's heard about, where a small man in black clothes does things that look impressive and would get that same small man killed in a real environment. He's seen what real fights look like. He's been in real fights. The kind where the only rule is that it ends, where the person trying to hurt you isn't a training partner pulling punches, isn't an athlete bound by weight class and referee and tap out, where the other man has every intention of making sure you don't go home. Daniel has been in that situation multiple times. He went home every time. The other men did not. This is what Daniel thinks about when someone says the words martial arts demonstration. He keeps the thought to himself. Usually, Bruce Lee arrives at Coronado at 0930. He comes in a standard vehicle. No entourage, no ceremony. He's 27, 5 feet 7, maybe 130 pounds on a good day. He's here because someone high up thought it would be worthwhile for the men to see something different. A different way of thinking about the body, a different framework for what physical conflict can look like. The official paperwork calls it a special conditioning and martial arts presentation for active special operations personnel. 200 SEALs, UDT men, and selected Special Forces operators assembled in the main training gymnasium. Bleachers on 3 sides. A cleared wooden floor in the center. Mats stacked against one wall that Bruce has declined. He doesn't need them, he said. Nobody quite understood what that meant. Daniel sits in the middle of the second row. Arms crossed, he watches Bruce walk out onto the floor, and he sees a small man in dark training clothes who looks like the kind of person you'd help carry groceries. He leans over to the man next to him, a SEAL named Carter who did 2 tours in the Pacific, whispers something short. Carter suppresses a smile. They both look back at the floor, the kind of look men give each other when they've already decided something. Bruce sets a wooden board in the center of the floor. A single board. He looks at the assembled men. He doesn't introduce himself. Doesn't explain what he does. He looks at the board for a moment, then back at the room. He raises one hand. Not a punch. Not a chambered strike with rotation and hip drive and the full mechanical investment of a committed blow. Just a hand. Raised. Positioned 1 inch from the surface of the board. The room has gone quiet without being asked. Then the board breaks. The 2 halves skid across the floor and stop against the mat wall. Nobody in the room saw what happened. The hand moved. The board broke. The interval between those 2 events registered as nothing. Daniel uncrosses his arms. His expression doesn't change. He is recalibrating. Storing the information. Not impressed yet. Not unconvinced, just recalibrating. Bruce demonstrates for the next 40 minutes. His assistant holds things and Bruce breaks them. Bricks. Boards stacked double, then triple. He moves through a series of strikes on a heavy bag that set the bag moving in directions that shouldn't be physically possible, given the angles of contact. He demonstrates a kick that makes 3 men in the front row flinch backward on the bleachers without the kick coming anywhere near them. He talks while he works, quiet, precise, no performance in his voice. He talks about efficiency, about the way the body carries force and how most people waste most of what they have before it reaches a target. He talks about the difference between speed and velocity. He talks about softness as a principle. The room listens. These are men who have heard a great deal of instruction in their lives. The room is listening in a way Daniel has rarely seen it listen. Then Bruce asks for a volunteer. He wants someone to push his palm. He extends his hand, flat, and he wants someone to push against it and try to move him backward. He wants full effort. He's clear about that. Full effort from whoever volunteers. He looks at the bleachers. He looks directly at no one in particular, which means he's looking at everyone. Carter goes. He's a big man, 220 pounds, trained and deployed. He puts both hands on Bruce's palm and drives forward. Nothing. Not like Bruce braced. Like Bruce is a wall that grew there. Carter increases pressure. His feet are working. There's a visible strain in his shoulders. Bruce hasn't moved. Bruce hasn't changed expression. There's no muscular engagement visible in his body that would account for what Carter cannot do. Carter steps back, breathing a little harder than he should be, confused. The room is quiet. Daniel watches. Carter returns to his seat. Daniel looks at Bruce standing at the center of the floor. He uncrosses his arms again, stands and steps down from the bleachers onto the wood. He's a full foot taller than Bruce. When they're standing 10 feet apart, the difference is so extreme that several men in the room actually laugh. Not cruelly. Just the involuntary release of something that doesn't have another outlet. The scale of the disparity is genuinely funny in the way that things that don't make sense are funny. Daniel has heard the laughs before. They don't bother him. They never have. He approaches Bruce, stops 5 feet out. He looks at the hand Bruce is extending, palm flat. He looks at Bruce. He puts his hands on the palm and he pushes. He puts into that push what he puts into things that need to be moved. He is not gentle about it. He is not pulling anything back. He drives forward with 280 pounds of operational weight and full commitment, and absolutely nothing happens. Bruce doesn't shift, doesn't absorb, doesn't brace visibly. Nothing moves. Daniel increases the output. He can hear his own boots working the floor. He can feel the engagement all the way up through his back. The palm in front of him might as well be the base of a cliff. He stops, steps back. His breathing is controlled, but something behind his eyes has changed. He looks at Bruce. Bruce lowers his hand. His expression is patient, unhurried, the kind of patience that comes from having something to teach, and no particular urgency about when the student is ready to receive it. "That's a trick," Daniel says. "Not a question. Flat. No tricks here. There's a frame or a brace you're using, something you're doing mechanically that I'm not seeing. Just structure." Daniel looks at him, then at the room. 200 men watching. The laugh has gone from the room. The room is paying attention, the way the room paid attention when the board broke. "I'd like to understand the mechanism," Daniel says. "Specifically." Bruce nods. The nod of a man who has been asked this question in exactly this form before and has an answer ready. "The clearest way I can show you is in contact. If you want to try to take me down, you're welcome to." Something changes in the room. Not dramatic. A slight inhalation. The way air moves when a space becomes a different kind of space. Daniel looks at Bruce for a moment. He is thinking, processing, deciding. His record in situations like this is perfect. His record in actual combat is what it is. He is not a man who has lost physical confrontations. He is not a man who has been made to feel small in any environment he's ever occupied. "All right," Daniel says. Someone in the bleachers says something under his breath that the men around him don't hear clearly. Carter leans forward, elbows on knees. Bruce takes 2 steps back and turns to face the room. He looks at the assembled men for a moment. Something in his posture shifts, not into readiness exactly, into a different kind of stillness. The stillness of something that has stopped being potential and started being actual. He turns back to Daniel. He stands with his hands at his sides. His weight is centered. There is no guard, no visible preparation. He looks again like a man waiting for a bus. "Whenever you're ready." Same words, same tone. Like he's offering Daniel the option of going first through a doorway. Daniel moves. He has been trained to close distance fast, and he does it. He doesn't throw a test punch. He's not interested in probing. He reaches for Bruce with both hands, the way you take control of a situation, and end it immediately. His left hand goes for Bruce's right shoulder. His right goes for the collar. The grip is there. He can feel fabric. His hands close. He applies pressure, begins to direct, the way you take a much smaller man and simply move him to where you've decided he's going to go. Then he is on the floor. He doesn't know what happened between standing and floor. Not even in the partial way you sometimes understand a fall while it's happening. The tilt and the overcorrection and the impact. He was upright and his hands had Bruce, and then the floor came up and he hit it. All 280 pounds of him, and the impacts traveled through his whole body, and the room made a sound he's never heard a room make. Not a gasp. Something before a gasp. The half second when a room is trying to process something that hasn't finished happening yet. He pushes himself to his hands and knees. The floor is solid under his palms. He gets one knee up. He rises. He's been on the floor before. In training, in water, in worse places than a gymnasium in Coronado. "You get up." He gets up. He looks for Bruce. Bruce is 2 feet away, standing exactly as he was standing before Daniel crossed the floor. The same stillness, same hands at his sides, same impression. Not triumphant, not relieved, present, attentive. Like a man watching something carefully to make sure the lesson lands correctly, Daniel charges. Less calculation this time, more forward, more committed. He doesn't go for a grip. He goes for a takedown, driving low, full body weight, the way you finish something definitively. He makes contact. He feels the impact. For a fraction of a second, his momentum is there. His weight is engaged. He is driving forward. Then the weight has nowhere to go. Something small and precise has redirected it, found the angle where all of Daniel's mass and momentum had become a liability rather than an asset. He goes over. He hits the floor harder than the first time. He lies there for 2 full seconds. The ceiling of the gymnasium is high, industrial, exposed steel beams. He's looking at it. He is trying to reconstruct the sequence in his mind, and there is no sequence. There is the charge, and then there is the ceiling. Nothing in between that he can account for. A foot rests on his chest, barely any pressure. The suggestion of pressure. He looks down at it. He follows the leg up, and Bruce Lee is standing over him, and the room is completely silent in the way that 200 people are silent when they are collectively holding their breath. Bruce's face is the same face. Patient. Attentive. Not remotely out of breath. That's enough. Bruce says, quiet. Not unkind. He removes the foot. He extends a hand. Daniel looks at it for a moment. He takes it. Bruce pulls him to his feet with no visible effort. They stand facing each other. The size disparity is absurd. It has become something in the room that no one quite knows how to look directly at. Daniel's chest is rising and falling. He is not injured. He is not concussed. He is in full command of his body, and he cannot explain what just happened to him twice on the same floor in front of 200 of his brothers. "Tell me what you did," Daniel says. His voice is level. "What were you thinking about when you charged the second time?" Daniel pauses, taking him down. "Where were you thinking about taking me?" "Down. To the ground." Bruce nods slowly. "You committed to a destination before you understood the terrain. You decided the outcome before the movement began. So when the movement began, you were already somewhere else in your mind. You were at the end. I was at the beginning." Daniel says nothing. He is listening in a way he has not listened to instruction in years, not since the early days of Bud Slash when everything was new and he had not yet decided he understood things. Size is information. Speed is information. Training is information. But information is only useful when you're receiving it. When you've already decided what you know, you stop receiving. You become predictable. And predictable can always be redirected. Bruce pauses. "Your strength is real. Everything you are is real. I'm not taking it apart. I'm showing you where its edge is." In the bleachers, Carter is staring at the floor. The man next to him is staring at the same floor. Nobody is looking at each other. The room is doing something private. Bruce turns back to the assembled men. He continues the demonstration for another 30 minutes. He is unhurried. He doesn't acknowledge what just happened on the floor as a performance or a victory. He moves directly into the next thing he wants to show them, the next principle. And the room follows him there without any transition, because the room has just been shown something that made it willing to follow wherever he leads. Daniel returns to the bleachers. He sits down next to Carter. Carter says nothing. Daniel says nothing. They watch. After the demonstration ends, and Bruce is escorted out, the room doesn't move the way rooms usually move when something is over. People stand, but they don't talk. They drift toward exits in ones and twos, quiet. The sound of boots on wood and doors opening and the ordinary machinery of a military base resuming outside. Daniel sits on the bleacher for 11 minutes after everyone else is gone. An instructor comes in to check the space and sees Daniel and leaves without speaking. Some things you leave alone. The story moves through Coronado by evening, not because anyone sat down to tell it, because 200 men witnessed it and 200 men have to talk to someone, and the someone they talk to talks to someone else. By nightfall, the numbers have started to drift in the retelling. Some say Daniel charged 3 times. Some say 4. Some say Bruce knocked him back from 6 feet away without touching him. The real version gets buried under the versions that are easier to believe. But the center holds. The biggest man on the base tried to put Bruce Lee on the ground, twice. And it was the second thing that happened that everyone remembers. The foot. The stillness. The hand extended. The way Bruce looked like nothing of consequence had occurred. Daniel takes no leave. Shows up for morning PT the next day. Same time, same face. He doesn't discuss it with anyone on his team. Not because he's ashamed, though there's something in that neighborhood. Because he doesn't have language for it yet. He has spent years developing a certain understanding of what he is, what his body is capable of, what the combination of his size and training and combat experience means in any environment where conflict becomes physical. That understanding was precise and detailed and had been tested repeatedly against reality. And the reality he encountered on the gymnasium floor on a Tuesday morning in October does not fit into the understanding he had. So the understanding has to expand. That takes time. It takes months. During those months, Daniel is quieter than usual. People on his team notice. Nobody asks. He begins reading. Not training manuals. Philosophy. Eastern material that he has to track down through the base library and request from civilian libraries in San Diego. He doesn't tell anyone what he's reading or why. He reads about the principle of yielding, about the idea that a system that redirects force is more resilient than a system that resists it. He reads and he goes back to the gymnasium floor in his mind and begins to find the seams in what happened. where the principle was applied, what he missed while it was happening, and why he missed it. He never develops the ability to do what Bruce did that morning, not even close. But he develops the ability to see it, to recognize the moment when a confrontation is already decided, when the commitment has already been made that will determine the outcome. That recognition changes how he operates. Not dramatically, gradually, over years. It makes him more patient in operational environments, more willing to wait for the terrain to present itself, rather than driving forward toward a destination he's already decided on. His commanding officer notices after about a year, doesn't know what changed, just knows that Daniel has become more effective in situations that require judgment, more effective in the ones that require restraint, the kind of situations where the man who pauses wins and the man who charges loses. On the evening of July 20th, 1973, Daniel is at a forward operating base in Southeast Asia when word comes through Bruce Lee is dead, 32 years old, some kind of cerebral edema. The details don't fully cohere into anything that makes sense. Daniel is sitting at a table in the operations tent going over route maps when someone tells him. He sets down the pencil he's holding. He doesn't move for a while. The tent is busy around him, men moving in and out, radio traffic, the ordinary texture of an operational environment. He sits still inside all of it. He thinks about the gymnasium floor, the ceiling, the extended hand. He thinks about a man who weighed 130 pounds, explaining to him, without cruelty, the location of his limitations. He thinks about the reading he did in those months afterward, and the slow expansion of something he didn't have language for until he found it. And when he found it, it was because of what happened in the gymnasium. He picks up the pencil. He goes back to the maps. Years later, when Daniel is out of the service and working in a different capacity, people ask him about Bruce Lee sometimes. The story has gotten around in the way stories like that get around in the communities where they happen. Nobody has ever written it down. It's a story that lives in the air between people who were there and people who know people who were there. When they ask, Daniel doesn't embellish. He doesn't expand. He gives them the plain version in the plainest language he has. He was the most capable person I've ever been in a room with. And I've been in rooms with exceptional people. They want the specifics. The seconds on the floor. How fast? What it felt like. Daniel says, it felt like I'd spent years building something I was certain was complete, and in about 8 seconds I found out it wasn't complete, it was just large. There's a difference. Large things have edges. He knew where my edges were before I moved. That's what I couldn't understand at the time and couldn't stop thinking about afterward. He pauses. I've been grateful for it my whole life. That's a strange thing to say about something that humiliating. But it's true. The most useful lesson I ever received, I received because I walked onto a gymnasium floor absolutely certain I already knew what I needed to know. He showed me what that certainty costs. Nobody else ever came close to showing me that. He doesn't say more than that. Doesn't need to. The lesson is the story. The story is the lesson. They're the same thing. And both of them live in 8 seconds on a wooden floor in October 1967, when a 130-pound man stood completely still and waited for a much larger world to come at him, and when it did, showed it exactly where it was going.